Welcome to the Bite-Sized Dash Tech News TLDR. Let's just get straight to it today.
Right, because we are skipping the noise entirely.
Exactly. We are bypassing the usual conversational fluff and driving directly into the absolute core of what is happening in the technology sector right this second.
Because the mission of this deep dive into the source material is singular.
It really is. We're taking complex, earth-shattering tech news and turning it into a digestible, hard-hitting summary for you.
And we are focusing strictly on the bottom line.
Yeah, what's the immediate security impact? What's the business implication? What is the tangible, productivity-altering reality for you, the average professional listener sitting at your desk or, commuting to the office right this second?
Because the landscape isn't just shifting a little bit to the left or right, it's completely breaking apart and reforming beneath our feet.
Literally overnight.
Yeah. We don't have time for high-level philosophical theory today. We need to look at the raw mechanics of what's actually happening on the ground.
The immediate consequences for enterprise businesses.
And most importantly, how you need to pivot your professional strategy today.
So let's drop the bomb right at the top. $285 billion.
It's just a staggering number.
I am going to repeat that number so the gravity of it truly sinks in. $285 billion. That is the amount of market value that simply evaporated from software and financial stocks on a single Monday.
Just vanished into thin air between the opening and closing bells.
Oh, yeah.
To put it in a macroeconomic perspective, you're talking about the equivalent of the entire gross domestic product of a mid-sized developed nation.
Like New Zealand.
Right, like New Zealand or Finland.
Yeah.
Just wiped off the ledger in 8 hours.
And this wasn't a gradual cyclical decline.
No, this was an instantaneous, violent recalculation of value by the most sophisticated institutional investors on the planet.
Right. And our source material today is an incredibly detailed YouTube transcript analyzing this exact event, an event the market has violently dubbed the SaaSpocalypse.
Which is a very fitting name.
It is. But here's the parameter for our deep dive today. We are entirely bypassing the panic.
Because panic is useless to you.
Exactly. Panic doesn't protect your portfolio, it doesn't secure your job, and it definitely doesn't make your team more productive.
So we are focusing strictly on the underlying mechanics of that massive loss.
The real-world implications, the immediate productivity impact, and what this massive market shift means for your daily professional life.
That is the only rational way to approach this. When $250 billion moves that fast, it leaves a massive, highly visible trail of data.
And our job today is to follow that data, dissect the catalysts that spark the fire, and give you the actionable intelligence you need to navigate the fallout.
So let's look at the sheer scale of the carnage first.
Because it's unlike almost anything we've seen in recent enterprise tech history.
Yeah.
We laid out the raw financial fact, right, that $285 billion vanished on one specific Monday.
Yes.
But there's a specific anchor point from the source material that I really want to drill into. Thomson Reuters. Thomson Reuters alone lost over $8 billion in a single day.
And that specific anchor point is incredibly critical to understand.
Why?
Well, Thomson Reuters isn't some highly speculative, volatile Series B startup burning through venture capital. It's a foundational pillar of global business intelligence.
Right. They provide the data terminals.
The legal research platforms, the financial news, the core informational infrastructure that Wall Street and the global legal sector rely on every single minute of the day.
It's a blue-chip, highly predictable, supposedly impenetrable legacy business.
Exactly. For a company of that stability to lose $8 billion in market capitalization in a matter of hours is practically unprecedented outside of a massive macroeconomic crisis like 2008.
I hear you on the drop, but let's be realistic for a second here. Thomson Reuters sells data, and data is supposed to be the new oil, right?
That's the saying.
So why does a stock that fundamentally deals in global truth just fall off a cliff like that? What is the psychology of a market reacting simultaneously to trigger that specific scale of loss in stable software and financial stocks?
It's a great distinction to make. Thomson Reuters owns data, yes, but their massive revenue model is built on the interface humans use to access that data.
Oh, the interface.
Right. What you're seeing in that $8 billion drop isn't individual retail investors getting nervous on Robinhood.
It's institutional.
You're seeing the synchronized, algorithmic, and institutional realization that a foundational assumption about the future has been broken.
The future revenue models.
Yes, institutional investors build incredibly complex financial models predicting the next 10 years of revenue for a company like that. Those models assume that humans will continue to need thousands of expensive monthly subscriptions to access that data through a proprietary user interface.
Ah, I see. So when the market suddenly realizes that an entire category of human users might be replaced by an automated system,
A system that doesn't need a traditional subscription or a human-readable interface.
the future revenue projections drop to zero.
Precisely. And when future revenue projections drop, the stock price adjusts instantly. It's the psychology of structural failure.
It's the realization that the moat protecting these massive companies
Their sticky user interfaces and their per-seat enterprise contracts.
has essentially evaporated overnight. The mood on the floor must have been unbelievable. The source material has this quote from a trader at Jefferies who was watching this whole thing unfold on the terminal.
He captured the moment perfectly.
He really did. He called it, quote, very much get-me-out style selling, pure panic. And it was actually this specific trader who officially coined the term SaaSpocalypse right there in the moment.
And we really need to differentiate between what that trader described and a standard market correction.
Right, because a correction is normal.
A market correction is just a bad day at the office. A correction is when the market decides a sector is overvalued by 10 or 15% and people trim their positions.
They sell a little bit to balance their risk profile.
What happened here was, as you said, a stampede for the exits. Get-me-out style selling means price is no longer the primary concern. The priority is simply liquidation.
They just want to hold cash instead of the asset, no matter how much of a haircut they take on the spread.
Exactly. It's pure capitulation. The specific fear driving institutional investors to abandon established tech in this instance was the sudden, undeniable proof of obsolescence.
Investors are ruthless pragmatists.
They are. They realized that holding these SaaS stocks was suddenly akin to holding stock in a horse-drawn carriage manufacturer the day Henry Ford figured out the assembly line for the Model T.
You don't hold on to the carriage stock hoping for a slight rebound in the fourth quarter.
No, you sell it at whatever price you can get before everyone else realizes the underlying business model is mathematically obsolete.
Which brings us to the most important question. The catalyst.
Yes.
What sparked this stampede? What was the actual match that lit the fire on that specific Monday? The source reveals it clearly. It was Anthropic.
Specifically, Anthropic's release of highly capable AI agents.
And we need to be incredibly precise here. We aren't talking about chatbots.
Not at all.
We aren't talking about typing a prompt into a text box and getting a polite, slightly hallucinated paragraph back. We are talking about agents capable of doing complex jobs in finance, law, and sales autonomously.
The distinction between a chatbot and an agent is the entire fulcrum of this financial collapse. It's the pivot point of the decade.
Explain that difference for us.
A chatbot requires constant human supervision, prompting, and hand-holding. It's a tool, it's like a very smart calculator. You still have to push the buttons, verify the output, and copy-paste it into the actual workflow.
Right.
An agent is fundamentally different. An agent is given an abstract goal, and it executes a multi-step workflow across different applications to achieve that goal entirely on its own.
It's the difference between asking an AI to write me an email template for a sales pitch, which is a basic chatbot function, and telling an agent, here's a list of 500 target companies. Research their recent quarterly earnings, identify the key decision makers, craft a highly personalized pitch for each based on their specific financial pain points, send the emails, and log the interactions in our CRM.
And the agent just goes and does it in the background while you get a coffee.
That's insane.
That's exactly it. And when Anthropic released these capabilities, the market looked at those agents and immediately realized they could perform the exact tasks that hundreds of thousands of entry-level analysts, paralegals, and junior sales representatives currently do.
But more importantly, from a financial perspective,
They realized these agents interact with data directly, bypassing the need for the expensive, heavily licensed software that those human workers rely on.
the catalyst was the demonstration of autonomous execution.
The moment an AI can execute a workflow autonomously, the software designed to help a human execute that workflow becomes deeply endangered.
Which means we have to talk about the core paradigm shift here. The entire tech industry is moving from a per-seat model to a per-task model.
We are witnessing the death of the old guard.
The brutal logic of the market is staring us right in the face. Why on earth is a business going to pay for 10 different software licenses when a single AI agent can run the entire workflow end to end?
To really grasp the gravity of this, we have to completely deconstruct what we call the golden age of software as a service, or SaaS.
Okay, let's deconstruct it.
For the last 2 decades, the entire technology industry, the entire venture capital ecosystem, has been built on one highly lucrative, beautifully simple business model: charging per human seat.
Right. If a company grows and hires a new employee, IT has to buy them a Microsoft Office license.
A Salesforce license, a Slack license, a Zoom license.
Or maybe an Adobe license, depending on the role.
Yeah.
The more humans a company hires, the more money the software companies make.
It was a beautiful, predictable, recurring revenue engine that venture capitalists absolutely salivated over.
It was.
It was arguably the greatest business model ever invented, but it relied on a foundational, unquestioned dependency.
The human worker.
Yes. The software was fundamentally passive. It was a digital workspace. It required a human to sit in the seat, physically click the mouse, and type on the keyboard to generate any actual business value.
The entire industry was built on the assumption that productivity scaled linearly with human headcount, and therefore software revenue would scale linearly right alongside it.
And now the market has instantly realized this business model is dead.
Because if the human is no longer required to sit in the seat, the license fee for that seat vanishes.
It disappears.
Which brings us to the most fascinating conceptual battleground of this shift: the user interface versus the outcome. We have to discuss the transition of value.
Because in the old world, the pretty user interface, the UI, that was the product.
You bought 10 licenses for 10 humans so they could interact with that beautiful, frictionless UI.
But in the new world, the outcome is the product.
Let's break down that transition of value, because this is the most critical conceptual leap for a professional to make today.
Think about it. Why do businesses actually buy software? They don't buy it because they like pretty drop shadows and rounded corners on a screen.
Right.
They buy it to achieve a specific business outcome. They buy accounting software to get a reconciled balance sheet. They buy CRM software to get an accurate forecast of closed deals.
Historically, the only way to get that outcome was to provide a human with a highly intuitive, visually appealing user interface so the human could do the work efficiently without making errors.
The UI was the bridge between the human's intention and the computer's raw processing power.
So the software companies invested billions in making that bridge as smooth, gamified, and beautiful as possible. I mean, it's funny. I remember spending 2 days last year just configuring a Jira dashboard so it looked perfect for a stakeholder meeting.
We've all done it.
The idea that an AI agent doesn't even care about my color-coded tags or my drag-and-drop columns, it's a little insulting to my ego, but mathematically I get it.
It is an ego check for all of us who have prided ourselves on mastering complex software interfaces. But what happens when the entity doing the work isn't a human?
An AI agent doesn't need a user interface.
An AI agent doesn't care about drop-down menus, color-coded dashboards, or drag-and-drop functionality. An AI agent interacts with the system directly through the code, through the application programming interface, the API.
It bypasses the UI entirely.
Therefore, if the agent is the one doing the work, the entire value proposition of the beautiful user interface collapses to zero. The business no longer cares about the UI. They only care about the final outcome.
Let's actually visualize what this means on the ground economically. Think about a traditional human team. You have a team of 10 people. To make them productive, you buy them 10 expensive enterprise licenses to beautiful software.
You're paying thousands of dollars a month just for the privilege of them logging in.
Contrast that with the new reality. A human team of just 5 people. But those 5 people are managing 50 AI agents.
Those agents are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And you are paying absolute pennies per task executed, not thousands of dollars for monthly seat licenses.
The economic disparity between those two models is so vast that it will force a violent market correction in every single industry on Earth.
The team of 5 managing 50 agents will drastically outproduce the team of 10 using traditional software.
And they will do it at a fraction of the operational cost. The business operating on the new agentic model will be able to lower prices, increase profit margins, and completely obliterate the competitor stuck on the old per-seat model.
This is exactly why the market panicked.
Investors realize that every single competitive company on the planet will be forced to transition to the agent-driven model just to survive.
Meaning they will all simultaneously cancel their per-seat SaaS subscriptions.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the immediate casualties. The source material lists the companies currently caught directly in the crosshairs. And these are absolute titans of the industry. Salesforce, ServiceNow, Intuit.
And the raw data is brutal.
All of them are down over 25% for the year. But I'm going to push back here a bit. I hear you on the theory, but let's be realistic. Companies like Salesforce are deeply, deeply entrenched in the Fortune 500.
They are.
It costs millions of dollars and years of logistical nightmare just to migrate off their CRM. Are you saying they're actually going to zero, or are they just going to buy these AI startups and bake the agents into their own backend?
That's the billion-dollar counter-argument.
Yeah.
Yes, the migration cost is high, and yes, Salesforce is trying desperately to pivot to an AI-first model. But you have to look at the math from the client's perspective.
Okay.
You don't necessarily have to migrate off Salesforce entirely to destroy their revenue model. You just stop renewing all the seats. If you currently have 10,000 sales reps licensed on Salesforce and you replace the workflows of 8,000 of them with an AI agent that interfaces with the Salesforce API via one single master account, Salesforce just lost 80% of its recurring revenue from your company.
They don't have to go to zero to be a terrible investment. They just have to stop growing and start shrinking.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, that makes perfect sense. The stickiness doesn't matter if the seat count drops by 80%. Let's look at ServiceNow and Intuit. What do they have in common with Salesforce in this specific context?
They are massive, highly complex workflow engines wrapped in a user interface. ServiceNow manages the IT support workflow. Intuit manages the accounting and tax workflow.
For decades, they've justified their massive valuations by being the central, indispensable hub where human workers spend 8 hours a day.
But if an AI agent can read a chaotic email from an angry customer, analyze their purchase history, issue a refund, and send the follow-up apology email without ever once logging into the Salesforce dashboard,
The Salesforce dashboard loses its immense value.
Precisely. If an agent can automatically resolve a server outage by interacting directly with the AWS backend, the ServiceNow ticketing dashboard is irrelevant.
If an agent can read the raw bank data feeds, categorize the expenses automatically, and generate the tax forms, the Intuit QuickBooks interface is functionally obsolete.
Right.
So if you're sitting at your desk right now, relying on your mastery of a specific software interface to justify your salary, this is your wake-up call.
It truly is.
Here is the bottom line. If a business's main value, if your company's core product, or even your specific department's primary function relies on providing or managing a user interface, it is fundamentally vulnerable today.
Right now.
It's the harsh truth of the new economy. If the primary value you provide to your employer is simply acting as the biological bridge between a screen and a task,
Taking data from a spreadsheet and putting it into a CRM, or reading an email and clicking a button in an app.
that value is evaporating rapidly. The market is mercilessly punishing companies whose only moat is a pretty UI, and it will eventually punish individual careers that are built on the exact same premise. So we've established the UI is deadweight. But if investors are ripping $285 billion out of these traditional UI companies, that money isn't just sitting in cash under a mattress.
It absolutely is not.
Where's it actually going? That's what we need to look at next. We're looking at the AI investment black hole. The source notes that while general IT budgets are growing at a healthy, normal clip, AI budgets are absolutely doubling.
The reallocation of capital is staggering, and it's happening at light speed. Corporate boards are looking at their quarterly IT budgets and ruthlessly slashing anything related to traditional seat licenses or legacy software bloat.
And they are funneling every single available cent into AI infrastructure, AI agents, and custom AI API integrations.
The source literally describes AI investment as a black hole sucking in every available dollar.
And why? Because of massive, undeniable, and immediate return on investment. This isn't speculative R&D anymore. This isn't the metaverse.
Yeah.
This is, if I put $1 into this agent compute cost, it saves me $10 in human operational costs tomorrow. But to understand why this shift happened so violently and so suddenly on that specific Monday, we have to define a critical concept: capability overhang.
Capability overhang is arguably the most important technological concept of the decade, and it explains absolutely everything about the current market panic.
Let's define it.
Capability overhang occurs when the raw, underlying power of a new technology vastly exceeds humanity's current ability to utilize it in the real world.
The technology is already there. It's already vastly more powerful than we realize, but the tools to harness it haven't been built yet.
The source material uses this brilliant Formula One analogy to explain it. Let's break that down, because it perfectly encapsulates the last 12 months.
For the past year, Human beings, meaning you, me, and everyone in the office, we've been using AI as basically a supercharged search engine. We type in a question, we get a smart answer.
But effectively, by doing that, we've been driving a Formula One car in first gear.
We've been entirely missing 99% of its true power because the right tools, the right interfaces to let it drive itself just didn't exist yet.
It's the perfect analogy. The engine of the large language model, the neural network itself, was already capable of deep reasoning, of complex multi-step planning, of writing sophisticated code, of deep logical deduction.
But because we restricted it, because we only gave it a tiny little chat box to interact with us, it was completely bottlenecked.
It was a supercomputer trapped inside a walkie-talkie. The overhang was the massive, invisible gap between what the model could actually do computationally and what the user interface allowed it to do in the real world.
The power was sitting there, latent, unused, and heavily underestimated by the general public and, crucially, by the financial markets.
And that latent power leads us directly to the avalanche analogy.
The source introduces this incredibly powerful image. AI's hidden power, that capability overhang, was like tons of snow quietly piling up on a mountain ledge.
It was an immense, crushing weight, just waiting for a few cracks to trigger an avalanche.
The snow was always there, but it looked perfectly stable to the people skiing below, until suddenly it wasn't. So we need to do a deep dive into the 4 cracks. What were the specific technological breakthroughs that suddenly triggered this avalanche?
The avalanche was triggered because these 4 breakthroughs didn't happen sequentially over a period of 5 years, which is what the market expected.
They happened almost simultaneously over a matter of months, converging to shatter that capability overhang all at once.
Let's hit crack number 1, smarter models. The AI started helping build the next generation of AI models.
This is the recursive improvement loop, and it terrified a lot of traditional software engineers.
We moved incredibly fast from humans writing all the code for AI architecture to AI assisting humans in writing the code for better AI architecture.
AI systems started generating synthetic data to train the next iteration of themselves.
This drastically accelerated the development cycle. The models became tangibly more capable of logical reasoning and far less prone to hallucination at a rate that shocked even the lead developers at OpenAI and Anthropic.
This provided the raw, reliable, intellectual horsepower needed for autonomous action. Crack number 2, escaping the chat box. The AI moved directly into operational tools like Excel and Slack. But how does that actually work technically? It's not just an integration, right?
Exactly. It's not just a plugin. This was the moment the F1 car got taken out of the parking lot and put on the actual track.
As long as the AI was trapped in a web browser tab, it was just an incredibly smart consultant. You asked for advice, it gave you advice, and you had to do the work.
But when developers gave the AI the ability to read your Slack messages natively, analyze an Excel spreadsheet directly, and actually execute commands within your computer's operating system, it became an actor.
It gained digital hands.
It could now affect the real-world digital environment, deleting files, moving data, sending emails, without you having to act as the intermediary copy and paste mechanism.
Crack number 3, explosion in complexity. The length and complexity of tasks AI could handle autonomously absolutely skyrocketed. And I'll get specific here. We hear terms like context windows thrown around. What does a massive context window actually allow an agent to do that it couldn't do 6 months ago?
The context window is essentially the model's short-term memory. A year ago, an AI might remember a few paragraphs of instructions before it forgot what you asked it to do in the first place.
Then suddenly, breakthroughs allowed models to process the equivalent of hundreds of books of information simultaneously. We're talking context windows of 1 million tokens or more.
So instead of giving it one article to summarize, you can drop in a company's entire 10-year history of SEC filings.
You drop in 10 years of SEC filings, their entire proprietary code base, and every internal Slack message from the engineering team for the last month.
Furthermore, they develop what's called chain of thought reasoning. This allows the model to break down a massive abstract goal, like audit this company's financial history for compliance violations, into hundreds of smaller, logically sequenced, executable steps.
And, because of the massive context window, it can pursue those steps relentlessly over hours or days without losing focus or forgetting the original parameters of the task.
And finally, crack number 4, The one that truly brought the mountain down, the one that sparked the SaaSpocalypse, multi-agent teaming.
We saw the breakthrough of making thousands of AI agents work together as a synchronized team. But I have to push back on this. Doesn't stringing a bunch of AI agents together just create infinite loops of hallucination? If one makes a mistake, doesn't the whole chain break down?
That was the fear, and that's why this crack is so profound. The breakthrough wasn't just getting them to talk to each other, it was the architecture of the interaction.
We developed swarm architecture and adversarial agent frameworks.
It's the death blow to the old organizational chart. It's one thing to have one smart agent. It's an entirely different paradigm when you can spawn an agent to act as a project manager.
That manager autonomously spawns 10 researcher agents, 5 data analyst agents, and 3 writer agents.
But crucially, it also spawns 3 reviewer agents whose only job is to aggressively audit the work of the other agents for hallucinations or logic errors.
The manager agent coordinates their work, mediates disputes between the creators and the reviewers, synthesizes the final verified product, and delivers it to you.
This is an entirely synthetic workforce operating in perfect synchronization with built-in quality control.
Okay, that is wild. So when we look at the big picture here, how did these 4 breakthroughs converging simultaneously trigger the market's avalanche realization?
When you combine dramatically smarter models, direct operational access to computer environment, massive complex task execution via huge context windows, and highly resilient multi-agent teaming,
You entirely eliminate the need for the human in the loop for a vast percentage of white-collar work.
the market looked at Anthropic's release, saw all 4 of these cracks perfectly aligned, and the capability overhang collapsed instantly. The snow fell.
The realization hit that the $285 billion of value tied up in the old way of doing things, relying on human beings clicking around in expensive software interfaces, was about to be buried completely.
The transition was no longer a speculative 5-year venture capital prediction. It was a right now, on-the-ground reality.
Which catapults us right into the real-world implications of all this. We are talking about immediate productivity impacts and the absolute end of enterprise lag.
Historically, there has always been this 18-month gap.
It's the 18 months, sometimes 36 months. It usually takes massive Fortune 500 corporations to adopt startup tech. Big companies are bureaucratic, they have compliance departments, they move incredibly slow.
But the source highlights that this lag is officially dead. Huge, monolithic companies are adapting in real time.
The enterprise lag existed because historically, deploying a new enterprise software platform required retraining thousands of employees, changing entrenched human workflows, negotiating with unions, and risking massive operational disruption.
It was a logistical and political nightmare, so conservative companies delayed it as long as possible. But AI agents do not require human retraining.
They don't complain to HR about new workflows.
You simply plug them in via API to the back-end systems, and they start working flawlessly alongside the existing infrastructure. The friction of adoption has dropped to near zero.
Furthermore, the competitive advantage of deploying these agent swarms is so extreme, we're talking orders of magnitude in cost savings, that any corporation that waits the traditional 18 months will simply be outpriced and bankrupted by competitors who adopted them today.
Therefore, massive, traditionally slow-moving corporations are bypassing their own bureaucracy and acting with the speed and desperation of a Silicon Valley startup.
Let's look at real-world case study number 1 from our source material. Goldman Sachs. This is not a nimble tech startup running fast and breaking things. This is a 150-year-old titan of Wall Street. They are the definition of institutional risk management.
And what did they do? They skipped basic testing phases. They embedded AI engineers directly into their trading and analyst teams.
They moved from using AI for simple coding assistance to using agents for core financial operations in an absolute flash.
The risk appetite required for Goldman Sachs to bypass traditional multi-year compliance testing and embed AI directly into core revenue-generating operations tells you absolutely everything you need to know about the stakes.
They realized that the first major bank to fully orchestrate AI agents across their financial operations will dominate the global market.
They are using agents to analyze millions of pages of risk data, generate complex compliance reports, and execute trades based on massive data synthesis that a human team could never match in speed or scale, even if they worked 100-hour weeks.
And we have to hit the bottom line impact of this for you, the listener. The CEO of Goldman Sachs is openly, publicly discussing using AI to, quote, constrain headcount growth. What does constraining headcount growth actually translate to for corporate hiring freezes and job security across the entire financial sector?
Constraining headcount growth is highly polished corporate speak for we are never hiring for these entry-level and mid-level data roles ever again.
When you hear a CEO of that magnitude say that in relation to AI, it means the traditional pyramid structure of corporate hiring is structurally collapsing.
It used to be that to do more work, a firm hired a massive base of junior analysts straight out of college, a smaller tier of managers to oversee them, and a few executives at the top.
Now, Goldman Sachs is realizing they can exponentially increase their operational output and revenue without ever expanding the base of the pyramid. The multi-agent swarms are the new base.
For the listener working in finance, accounting, or any data-heavy sector, this means the days of easily securing a secure, well-paying job simply to crunch numbers, build basic Excel models, or generate initial summary reports are over.
Those jobs are gone. The hiring freezes currently happening in the sector are likely permanent structural adjustments, not temporary economic pauses due to interest rates.
That is a chilling reality check, and it scales way beyond just Wall Street investment banking. Let's look at real-world case study number 2, Norges Bank.
We need to detail the sheer scale of this entity because it puts the numbers into perspective. Norges Bank is Norway's massive sovereign wealth fund. We are talking about an entity that manages $1.7 trillion. Trillion with a T.
It is one of the largest single institutional investors in the world.
And critically, an entity that manages $1.7 trillion is already hyper-optimized. They hire the best financial minds on earth, they use the absolute best proprietary tools, and they do not have massive glaring inefficiencies just waiting to be easily fixed by a new piece of software.
Exactly. And yet, look at the ROI data from the source. They deployed AI agents, and they saved 213,000 hours of work.
213,000 hours. Let's actually visualize what 213,000 hours means on the ground. That equals a 20% productivity gain across the entire board.
In an organization that was already functioning at peak hyper-efficiency.
It's the equivalent of instantly hiring over 100 brilliant 24/7 employees who never sleep, never take a sick day, and never make a calculation error in a spreadsheet.
Let's break down the math on what 213,000 hours actually looks like. If a standard human professional works roughly 2,000 hours a year, Norges Bank effectively downloaded the output of 106 full-time elite financial professionals directly into their servers.
But they didn't have to recruit them, they didn't have to onboard them, they don't pay them six-figure salaries, they don't provide them health care, and they don't give them office space.
And those agents completed work that wasn't just simple data entry. It was likely complex, multivariable data analysis, deep regulatory compliance checking across global markets, and sophisticated portfolio modeling.
When a $1.7 trillion fund becomes 20% more efficient literally overnight without adding a single human to the payroll, the entire global financial ecosystem has to respond.
Every hedge fund, every asset manager, every bank in the world must now achieve that exact same 20% baseline jump in efficiency just to maintain parity and not get eaten alive.
And the only mathematical way to do that is to rapidly deploy their own swarms of AI agents.
Which brings us to perhaps the heaviest, most mind-blowing statistic in this entire deep dive, the GitHub statistic.
GitHub is the central repository where the world's software developers write, store, and collaborate on their code. The source drops this undeniable fact. 4% of all public code commits on GitHub are now fully written, not just assisted by autocomplete, but fully authored from start to finish by a single AI model from Anthropic.
1 out of every 25 public code changes on the entire planet is written by an agent.
Now, I know someone listening is thinking, okay, 4% doesn't sound like a total takeover. Why is that number actually terrifying?
Because you have to look at the velocity of adoption and the nature of what a commit is. A commit isn't just a line of code. It's a completed, functioning piece of architecture pushed to a repository.
Software engineering has long been considered the ultimate safe haven of the modern economy. It was the ultimate, untouchable knowledge work.
The cultural narrative was always, learn to code and you are financially safe forever. But writing code is ultimately just translating human logic into machine syntax.
AI agents are profoundly natively good at syntax and logic. It's their first language. If a single model from a single company is autonomously generating 4% of the world's public code today, what does that number look like in 6 months, in 12 months?
It's a geometric growth curve. It's not going to be 5% next year. It's going to be 40%.
What does this mean for the future of software engineering? What are the immediate daily productivity expectations for developers sitting at their desks right now?
It means the fundamental nature of the software developer role has irrevocably changed. The immediate productivity expectation for a mid-level developer has just multiplied by a factor of 10.
You are no longer expected to spend 3 days writing a boilerplate authentication function or spending 8 hours debugging a database connection error. The AI can do that perfectly in 30 seconds.
Therefore, the junior developer role, the person whose job was purely to write that basic foundational code and learn the ropes, is facing immediate extinction. The expectation now is that a single developer functions as a high-level systems architect.
You design the overarching system, you specify the security parameters, and you oversee the swarms of AI agents that actually write the thousands of lines of granular code.
If you are a developer who insists on writing every single line by hand out of pride, you are operating at 1/10 the speed of your peers, and you'll be priced out of the market immediately.
And this massive shift in how value is created, how code is written, and how finance is managed brings us to the new structure of business. We need to look at the new hierarchy of defensibility.
The old deck, where a great user interface and a clever marketing strategy could build a billion-dollar company, has been completely reshuffled. What makes a business or a career secure today?
The source breaks down the new deck perfectly, and we must analyze this deeply because it dictates the next decade. The new hierarchy of defensibility dictates exactly where the venture capital will flow and where the high-paying jobs will exist.
Let's start at the top, the absolute king of the hill. Unique data and intellectual property, IP.
Why is this at the top? Because AI models are starving, ravenous engines for unique, high-quality data. And AI is an incredibly powerful reasoning engine, but it's ultimately hollow. It cannot reason about information it does not possess.
If your company possesses proprietary data, exclusive anonymized medical records, highly guarded financial transaction histories, unique customer behavioral data that isn't on the public web, you hold the absolute highest ground.
You have the raw, unrefined fuel that the AI engines desperately require to generate any value. Your defensibility is absolute because an AI, no matter how smart, cannot replicate data it cannot see.
This is exactly why you see platforms like Reddit signing massive multi-hundred-million-dollar licensing deals to let AI companies scrape their forums. The data is the ultimate moat.
Moving to the middle of the hierarchy. Great APIs that allow AI agents to easily use a service.
This is the connective tissue of the new agentic economy. An API, an application programming interface, is how two machines talk to each other directly without a screen.
If you build a service, let's say a highly complex logistics routing algorithm for shipping freight, you do not need to waste millions of dollars building a pretty web interface for human dispatchers.
You just need to build a perfectly clean, highly reliable, deeply documented API, because the new user of your service will be an AI agent trying to autonomously route a delivery for its human boss, and that agent will connect directly to your API.
Businesses like Stripe are perfectly positioned for this. Businesses that provide seamless, fast, machine-to-machine connectivity will absolutely thrive. They are the toll roads of the new economy, collecting fractions of a cent every time an agent passes through.
And at the bottom, the absolute commodity level of the hierarchy, the pretty user interface.
We covered this extensively, but it absolutely bears repeating within this hierarchy context. If your company's only competitive advantage in the marketplace is that your app has a slightly nicer layout, a better dark mode, or fewer clicks for a human user than the competitor's app, your business is a dead-end commodity.
You are at the absolute bottom of the hierarchy because human users are being phased out of the primary operational workflow. The UI is dead weight.
This leads us to the core realization. If you're listening to this on your commute or while you're working, this is the moment you need to pay attention. The agent is the new user, not the human. The financial value of the entire tech sector is moving entirely to the API connection layer.
We must deliver the most crucial, most devastating line from the source material. Listen closely to this quote. The models have now fundamentally learned the logic and the workflows that used to belong only to knowledge workers and to the very software they used.
That single sentence is the thesis of the entire technological revolution we're living through. Let's dissect it carefully. The models have learned the logic.
Historically, software was dumb. It was just a highly structured digital filing cabinet. It held data. The human worker provided all the logic. The human knew that if situation X happens in a client account, we must execute sequence Y to resolve it legally and profitably.
The human knew the sequence of the workflow. Now, the AI models have completely internalized that sequence. They don't just know how to type a grammatically correct email. They know why the email needs to be sent, when it needs to be sent to maximize open rates, and what the specific financial consequence is to the quarterly earnings if it is not sent.
They have absorbed the cognitive architecture of the white-collar worker.
And they have learned the workflows of the software itself. The agent knows how to navigate the back end of Salesforce better than the human does. It knows how to structure and assign the JIRA ticket better than the human project manager does.
Exactly. And when the machine possesses both the strategic logic of the human worker and the flawless technical mastery of the software tools, the traditional role of the knowledge worker is completely displaced.
You are no longer the source of logic. The agent is. You are no longer the master of the tool. The agent is.
Which brings us to the professional pivot. This is the ultimate bottom line productivity takeaway for you, the listener. What do you actually do with this information tomorrow morning when you log on?
Your job is no longer to compete with these tools. If you try to be faster at writing code, faster at drafting legal briefs, or faster at building financial models in Excel than an AI agent, you will lose, and you will burn out trying.
You are flesh and blood competing against silicon that processes at the speed of light and never sleeps. It is a professional suicide mission.
So what is the actual pivot? How does a professional listener survive this?
Your job is to become the orchestrator. You must become the person who manages, deploys, and commands those 50 AI agents. You must elevate yourself from the person doing the granular task to the person defining the overarching strategy, setting the specific ethical and operational parameters, and validating the final outcomes of the autonomous swarms.
You have to transition from the soldier digging trenches on the ground to the general in the command tent looking at the entire battlefield.
You must completely adjust your assumptions about what is possible for a single person to achieve. And you must do it immediately, ASAP. If you walk into your office tomorrow and start doing your job the exact same way you did it a month ago, manually grinding through workflows, copying and pasting data between tabs, you are actively participating in your own obsolescence.
You have to look at your daily tasks and ask, how do I build an agentic workflow to do this entire process for me so I can spend my time managing the output and strategizing the next move, rather than generating the raw data?
That is the only viable path to professional survival and wealth generation in this new era. The market has spoken incredibly clearly. $285 billion says the old way is dead. The orchestrator is the only human role left with high defensible value.
Which brings us to our wrap-up. We need to rapidly summarize the 3 most important takeaways for the bite-sized format, distilling everything we just covered into actionable intelligence. Takeaway number 1. The traditional per-seat SaaS business model and UI-centric software are dying, triggering a massive, violent market reallocation of wealth. If your company's value or your personal professional value is tied primarily to a user interface, you are in immediate danger.
Takeaway number 2. The capability overhang has completely collapsed due to 4 simultaneous breakthroughs. AI agents are no longer a speculative future prediction. They are right now autonomously executing complex, multi-step workflows in major enterprises, effectively ending enterprise lag. Massive corporations are deploying agents in real time, driving immediate productivity gains, and instituting permanent headcount constraints.
And takeaway number 3. For you, the professional, the AI agent, is the new user. Survival in this new economy means completely shifting your identity from a traditional knowledge worker executing manual tasks to an orchestrator commanding and managing fleets of AI agents to achieve massive outcomes.
But before we leave you today, we must leave you with a final provocative thought. We need to look over the horizon for a second. If we accept the premise of this source material that AI agents have successfully learned the foundational logic and workflows of current knowledge workers, and that corporations like Goldman Sachs are halting entry-level hiring to rely on these swarms, where will the next generation of human workers go to learn that foundational logic if the entry-level tasks are entirely automated?
That is the ultimate paradox of this whole shift. If a junior lawyer only learns how to be a brilliant senior partner by manually grinding through brutal document discovery for 5 years, but an AI agent now does all the document discovery perfectly in 5 minutes, how do we ever train the next senior partner? If the bottom rungs of the professional ladder are kicked away by automation to save money, how does the human worker ever climb to the position of orchestrator in the first place?
It is a profound structural crisis for the future of human capital development, and it is a question every major corporation, every university, and every individual entering the workforce is going to have to answer. very, very quickly.
And that is exactly the kind of bottom-line, fiercely analytical reality check we promised to deliver. Thank you for joining us on this incredibly fast-paced deep dive into the source material. We stripped away the fluff and got straight to the facts that matter to your career. Remember to absolutely check out the Tech News TLDR YouTube channel for our daily video updates where we continue to track this unbelievable market shift in real time. Stay sharp, adapt quickly, become the orchestrator, and we will see you on the next deep dive.